Hello. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Minnie Cooper. And
Thank you, Minnie Cooper.
no, really though, I'm serious. We're grateful. And thank you to the ICA and everybody who works there, who has been wonderful. I don't know. It's been a beautiful day for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess since we've been introduced, then we can just dive right in to all of Diamond's recent works, which I've been swimming in now since I wrote this essay for months and months. And I think you'll find, as I have found, that what Diamond has created is a rich and powerful series of works that are incredibly exciting to look at and then return to again. And the show that she's put together for the ICA has some of her, I feel, greatest hits, and also some new additions to her oeuvre, as
It's
the
my
kids
latest
say.
mixtape. Yes.
Yeah. She's been working really hard in the studio on this mixtape, and we're blessed to be able to finally hear it. So I guess, Diamond, if it's okay with you, maybe we could start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
We got a PowerPoint.
I love PowerPoints. All right, so in 2014, Martine Sims published Love Diamond from Dominica Press, which is
It's my Love Diamond is from 1990, the end of 1998 and beginning of 1999. And how I know that is because my little sister is in my one of my diary entries from back then, and she was just born, and she was born in April 1999, and I didn't know how to spell her name in the diary. So her name is Fatima, and I called her Fab in my diary. So that's how I know. Love Diamond was made, it was my first journal. My grandma gave it to me. My grandma Granny, that's my maternal grandmother, and she was the one that always said that I was going to be a writer or an artist. So it's kind of like an ode to her. My grandmothers are in my work a lot because they helped raise me. And yeah, that's the first thing I ever really did was publish Love Diamond with artist Martine Sims. And Martine Sims is kind of like my mentor, so it was like very special that I did that. And I look back on my diary entries from 1998, and I really have not changed in the 20 years that I've since I wrote it. I'm kind of still the same little girl, so it's just funny to look back on it. And it will be up for purchase soon on Dominica's website again, but it's sold out right now.
Yeah, it's sold out. Diamond's read from it a few times. Some of those times are on the internet if you enjoy the internet. And I think that it's really worth a hear and worth a listen, because young Diamond and current Diamond echo this series of frustrations about.
I'm still mad, honestly, from '98.
Yeah.
I also think one of the reasons why a lot of people like Love Diamond is because there's not that many documentation, I guess, of black girl childhood. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people take interest in Love Diamond, is because it's just me as a child, as a little black girl, just doing like mundane things, but having very much of a sense of humor to it.
Yeah, and I think you were really self-aware in a way that I, also being 8 in 1998, was not self-aware. And I think, my diary's hilarious, mostly because I was so frustrated and angry that I couldn't write. And so there would be these like half entries or half-finished diaries. And so what I loved so much about Love Diamond when I was reading it was I was like, yeah, you're articulating some of the things that I was
I just wanted to be respected, honestly. That was it, I think. 8-year-old Diamond wanted respect. For real, I did did. I was really salty with my parents a lot of the time.
Totally. One of my favorite parts is when you talk about having done the dishes and you're like, I've been doing the dishes, and my brother does the dishes once and he gets all this credit.
He got paid. I need to throw that out. My brother got paid to do the dishes, and I did the dishes all the time. And then at that point, my mom said, oh, I didn't know. And I was like, how do you not know? Like, now that I'm older, I'm like, it's still not adding up. But at the time, I was like, oh, she didn't know. It's okay. But now that I'm older, I'm like, you knew.
She had to have known. My parents knew everything I was doing. They know. They know what they're doing. Anyways, okay, so that's Love Diamond. And that's a nice thing to think about as we look at the rest of Diamond's work. So moving along in the PowerPoint, Diamond's really originally from Chicago, just to make sure that that's clearly said. And because Chicago comes up in Diamond's work, and Chicago as a Black American city, I think is also relevant to think about, and the way that Chicago looks and functions has a lot to do with Chicago's history, but also American history, and so it's important to like think about Chicago sometimes.
Do y'all know what a hotep is? Because I feel like Chicago is a city of hoteps, and there's a lot of like my brother, my sister, like that type of vibe going on. So yeah, I'm from Chicago, like a city of hoteps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this egg show that is called Forever in Our Hearts from 2014, that was in Egg Gallery. It was your first show in Chicago.
Yeah, and no one came to it. So I just want to throw that out. Just because don't nobody go to your shows doesn't mean anything, and to keep doing what you do. My first show, no one came to it but one person. So I'm just throwing that out there. Don't let that discourage you if no one shows up. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Straight up though, really. I think what's so weird about being an artist is that you really have to believe in yourself before anybody else does. And if you don't believe the fact that you are what you are, nobody else will. Yeah. I think this show in particular really struck me because you were speaking about death in a way that was also about living. And I think something that I always loved about being a Black person at a funeral is that it was both a celebration and a mourning simultaneously. And because living is not this thing that is as linear as people would like it to be. So to name that by creating your own funeral space, I thought was really beautiful and really exciting personally.
If y'all have ever been to a Black funeral, they last a really long time, but it's all about celebrating life and appreciating the life that person lived. And I made this show Forever in Our Hearts at a time that I knew I was going to leave Chicago and start anew. So that's one of the reasons why I made this show. And it's not a funeral, it's depending on who you talk to, it might be a homecoming or a homegoing. I think it's called homecoming, right?
I thought it was homegoing.
It's a homegoing, yes. It's called a homegoing, and it means you're going home, you're going to heaven. And I just felt like at that time in my life, it was time for me to leave Chicago, regardless of how much I love it, and start something new. So I had a homegoing for myself because I knew that the old Diamond was dead. No, I'm playing, but I just knew I was transitioning into a new chapter in my life, and that's why I did it. And also, the Bible is taken from my. I still have this Bible. It will never ever be for sale. It's priceless to me. It's my Auntie Idella, and that is technically my great aunt. That was her Bible, and she lived for a really long time, and then she passed away. So it's very special to me. And the frame right there that says "You're Special" was taken from my grandma Estelle's house, and I had to give that back. And this was actually found on the street. I was having a really rough day, and I came across, in Chicago, because it's a city of hoteps, they're always passing out like pamphlets and stuff like that. And so I found this on the street when I was having a really bad day, and I picked it up, and it made me feel good. Also, the candy on the table, yeah, that candy right there is based off my Auntie Pearl, which is technically my great aunt. That's my grandma's sister, and my grandma Estelle. they stay with peppermints and the strawberry candy, which I don't know the name of it, but it's.
Anybody know the name of that?
No. When I was looking for the candy up in Walmart, I put in Google strawberry candy, and they knew exactly what I was looking for. And the fake flowers is actually based off my Auntie Pearl, because she owns a beauty salon that my mother has been working at since she was 15, before I was even a thought. And I was like, wow, Auntie Pearl, she always keeps her flowers so nice. I had to be like 12 or something. Then my mom was like, they're fake, Diamond, they're fake. They've been around for years, and I still put water in the thing, because I used to water her plants, and she was like, go ahead and water them, it's fine. And they were fake this whole time. So I think at my funeral I do want fake flowers, maybe. And this was the obituary. And if you go on their website, which is eggwith3gs.co, you can read the obituary and print it out yourself.
Do it. Okay, so this piece I threw in because I kind of realized that it was the first moment that I could find in my research around Diamond's work where the braid was articulated, and I don't know, you were telling me more about it this afternoon, and I...
Oh, yeah, so to be real, this was Martine Sims' show that she had at Project Row House, and she flew me down. And I think she did that on purpose because she wanted me to have experience within a gallery setting that was more than Forever in Our Hearts, because like I said, didn't nobody go to that. And it was only like one like table display. It was technically a window display. No one was allowed to go in the gallery anyway. You could only look at it through the window, so maybe that's why ain't nobody come. But with that being said, she flew me down to Texas for it, so she gave me really like my first experience like traveling and like having a budget and staying in a hotel and coming up with a concept for a show. So Martine has helped me out a lot throughout my career, and this is from that. So this was technically it's supposed to be Martine's thing.
Featuring you.
It literally said featuring Diamond Stingily, like we was on a song together. And yeah, she just was like, it was kind of like, it was her show, but she made it my show, which was funny because she was like, all right, do what you want to do. And I was like, what? I was not ready for that. So yeah, I was really happy with this, and it was Project Row House. It was a lot of love when I was down there, and I was having like a really good time. And that was probably the second braid piece I actually ever made right there, but I don't know where it is now.
It happens. It's the way life is. So this is an install shot from Cuss, which was your show at Queer Thoughts that went up in 2016. And it gets its title from the wise black snake in Kipling's 1895 Jungle Book. And each Ka braid is incredibly specific and has a particular way about them that's, I don't know, they're very haunting, but they're also really playful and really exciting.
Just like me.
Exactly. And so in this way, I think this show, I think that was the first moment that I had heard about your work being a gallery nerd or whatever. And so I was like, oh, okay, like what's going on here? And reading the press release, there was a lot of talk about Gorgons and Medusa. And I did write a big essay about Diamond's work, which I will spare
Ram was
you.
gonna read it too, and y'all was gonna be bored because it's like 20 minutes long.
It is. I'm very indulgent. But I'll just read some parts about Medusa and about the Gorgon and a little bit about this show, maybe, and then we can talk about it more. Where are the bodies from which these braids emerge? I heard Medusa was a black woman. Stinglily's press release wondered, was Medusa a Gorgon or a misunderstood woman? There would be hesitation to say she was evil if the listener could hear her speak. The root of the word Gorgon is gorgos, terrible. It sounds so much like gorgeous, but I cannot seem to find an etymological connection between the words. The root of gorgeous apparently means throat, originally maybe from the Latin, a whirlpool, eddy, gulf, or sea. It is not the meaning, it's the sound. Stingily explains in her talk for Manuel Arturo Abreu's online lecture-based school, Homeschool. Please check out Homeschool, by the way.
Homeschool is sick. Check them out.
Homeschool is amazing. Homeschool, that inappropriate desires for the black female body are wound up in hatred, fetish, deep stares, gazes, comments, a going over with eyes that imply, I desire you so much I wish to destroy you. If Medusa were a black woman, and her hair braids or dreadlocks, her ability to turn to stone would say more about the viewer than her. Stone, as a product of desire that implies a need for violence, constructs a victim out of the gazer, frozen by desire. But what about the woman who loses her head because of her threatening beauty? Oh, thank you, John. Thanks. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about the show?
Yeah, so Cause was my first show with QT Gallery, or Queer Thoughts Gallery. It started from they had a group show called The Last Act of Violence, and I made a Cause braid for that. And then so my first show was nothing but Cause braids. I mainly made it because I was discussing the black gaze, kind of how like, we talked about this earlier, how like sometimes as a black person, you can be on public transportation or just anywhere, and then you look up and someone's like staring at you and you don't necessarily know why they're looking at you, but then they give you kind of like that puppy smile, like, and you're just like, what's going on? And then you realize like that's kind of like the gaze. And so like, or it's like when I did have hair, or even now that I don't have hair, it's like people are so quick to like touch me without asking. And like, I don't know, it's just like, I don't think people necessarily do it intentionally to be rude or make you feel like an object, but like, that's what's happening. So like, I think Cause was mainly like created out of that. Like at the time I was wearing a lot of braids, and I had like a beautiful big natural fro, and people were like being like, oh cute, and like no one should just touch your hair. No one should even really ask to be touching your hair, but like, okay. All right, yeah. But like it was happening a lot, and I was just like, I guess I kind of made it out of frustration. But people took that Disney, that Disney thing, and they like ran with it. But it was obviously much more than just a Disney character, and it had a lot to do with black hair and black girlhood, and how much we emphasize on our hair and how important it is to us. But like you said in the piece that you just read, it's like when someone violates you or touches you, or it says more about them than it does about you. So I think like the way people were interacting with the hair pieces that I made, it said way more about the viewer than it did about the pieces itself. Because people were like touching them and stuff, and it's art, so you're not supposed to touch it, right?
No.
But it's hair, it's black hair, so people want to touch it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think these braids as like backwards mirrors was really exciting to me as a viewer, to be like, I mean, they function in the same way as something that, I mean, like I guess an art historical line would be like the most photographed barn in America. So people feel as though black hair is such a site of entertainment and excitement that to them it doesn't really exist for the person whose body it lives on. It exists rather for the person who is viewing it, which is so weird to think about as like a human who is black and has black hair, and then can also like have, yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, or even like, I feel like I have a lot of conversations about hair. Yeah. So much, and I'm kind of over it, to be real. It's like, I get it, I have thick hair, and I do a lot with it. It's versatile. I can set it on fire. It might still be on my head. It's like that thick. So like, it's good. Yeah. I'm happy with it. I'm not mad at it. I love my hair.
Same. I mean, when I have it. But
when we have it, it's nice.
Exactly. There's also a lot of like really fascinating healing conversations that come up around hair, where I have white people coming up to me and being like, I don't know how to deal with my hair. Do you know how to deal with my hair? And I'm like, most of the time I would charge for this, but this is a big deal. And this is sad too.
That's true, that a lot of us don't know how to take care of our natural hair, but just like in Western society, how black hair is looked at. And I think that's another reason why I made the cause pieces, is because my mother has always told me that I have beautiful hair. And I know for a fact that a lot of girls didn't grow up hearing that, or they want like that wavy hair, or like that hair you just wash and go type hair, but like I ain't got that. And I learned to love my hair and love hair like mine, I guess. So that's another reason why I made these pieces, is just to let people know your hair is cool. It's fine.
It is cool. I think we have similar textures of hair, like really thick hair. It's nice, actually. I didn't realize how much I liked it till I got older. Anyways, moving right along. So
cute.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
So this was taken from my grandma's house, and I made this piece actually because of my grandma. This piece is still at my grandma's house. It hangs over the toilet, and what I did was I took it and I scanned it, and then I wrote over it. Put that as a pure color to be free from health. Oh, I got that cleanliness line from just older people in my family that have OCD. My family, besides me, has OCD. They're very, very clean people. And yeah, that's kind of why I took it, is because I was like mother's little helper, and it's like a little black girl like putting laundry away, and I've always seen that like hanging in since I was a little kid, and it's just always been like, why she ain't got no clothes on? And like, and also too, I feel like, I think a lot of black households have these random like posters.
Inspirational
posters and stuff, or just like posters that make no sense. Like, why does my grandma have that in her bathroom? I do not know, but I just liked it. And I also was thinking about how people think white is a pure color. But if you really think about the idea of wearing a white shirt or wearing white pants, it stains so easily, and it gets dirty so easily. And you could think about that with other things, how like we want to put whiteness on a pedestal and think about it as being pure, when really like white shirts get dirty so easily, and I would prefer to wear a dark shirt any day over a white shirt.
Yeah, I mean,
unless it goes with the look. But usually I'm wearing like a dark shirt because I don't want it to stain. I don't want it to get dirty. I don't want to tarnish it.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, this brought up so many questions about purity. Who gets to say what's pure? Who gets to say what's clean? And also a bit of frustration, too, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, when I see a little black girl doing laundry, I don't get to just be like, oh, cute, she's helping.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, there's this overlay of historical frustrations that I see when I see an image like this.
And I was also thinking about with this piece, my family is from Chicago, but we have very much Southern influences in my family, because both of my grandmas and one of my grandfathers is from Mississippi. And so I feel like even my accent is slightly Southern because of the women that raised me. And I was just thinking about, too, growing up being the first daughter in a black family, there's a lot of responsibility on the first daughter, and I just was like thinking like mother's little helper. I was mother's little helper. I was the one like helping my mom with the siblings, doing chores. Like, I think it was pretty rare if my brothers had to do chores and things like that. So I was just thinking about like how usually the first daughter within a black family has so much responsibility, or the fact that it's kind of like boys will be boys and girls automatically should know better. Like, even if I didn't know better, I should have known better. So I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, that phrase, should have known better. I just gotta chill. There's so many things I should have known better, but I didn't, and I don't.
Because I was a child.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a still from the installation of Elephant Memory, which is also from 2016, further along in the year, at Ramekin Crucible, and this is in their New York space. And yeah, I mean, I remember the opening of this show, and it was one of those like nights where everybody was like, yo, what are you doing? Everybody's like, I'm just going to Diamond show.
For real? It was like that?
For real, it was so cute. And then people would be like, yo, have you been to Diamond's show yet? And I was like working my way down the Lower East Side, getting to your show. When I finally arrived, it was like this really amazing energy that I think stayed in the space actually when the opening was over and when the show was just going up. It was, I don't know, it was both, it was an excitement somehow because you had articulated so well with the materials that you used, the ideas that I think you move around within your work, but also some of the things that are so palpable about blackness in the States, not using the typical tropes of such a blackness. And by taking these particular materials, the door, the bat, the chain link fence, Pizza Pizza Daddy-O, the documentary that you projected on the chain link fence, you moved through some of the historical realities of blackness in a way that was so fluid and so smooth. And then on top of that, there was the double dutch. And so it was all about like play in relation to not playing. Like play as a dress rehearsal for what? For pain, for fear, for exhaustion, but then also it was a portrait too, in a way, of your grandmother who you lived with for a long time. So I guess as I like, gush and gush about it, maybe it'd be cool if you wanted to talk a little bit about the show and how you were feeling when you were working on it.
I made Elephant Memory around the time it was maybe like a few months after I left Chicago. I still miss my family a lot. I don't get to see them that often. So I feel like a lot of my work surrounds them because, to be real, they're all I know. I really didn't hang out with that many people. I kicked it with my family really hard. And I made this is my second solo show, which was really cool because it was like back to back. It was like, and I mainly made this out of childhood memories from my grandma's house, my grandma Estelle, which is my paternal grandmother. I lived with her for a while, but it was also based off of the present time. I think a lot of people think I pull from the past a lot, but this was also like from present time. Like, even though I'm not with my grandmother now, she's still alive. I know that's not like she passed away. She's well, she's in good health. Even though I'm not with like my grandma right now, I know she still has that bat by her door, And the chain link fist is mainly based off of school and but also to the past, about how I felt as a child playing like hand games with my friends and things like that. I don't really think kids do that no more. Do they? Like play outside and stuff?
I don't know.
I don't think they do. I don't know. So like, so it was mainly based off that memory, kind of like, I feel like 90s kids are kind of like the last of the kids that like played outside, and like our grandmas helped raise us and things like that. So like, that was kind of like a ode to my grandmothers and like where they came from, but also like present time.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about this piece, Elephant Memory?
Elephant Memory is based off my mother, Sandra Stingily. I said her full name, like y'all know her, like, oh, okay. No, but yeah, it's based off my mom. My mother does hair for a living, and I was just mainly thinking about time. This kind of has to do a lot with like time and how hair has affected my family. I come from a family of beauticians and athletes. It's a good combo. So we look good. I don't know. So that was it. I mean, it's more to it than that because it's chains and hair. And like I said earlier, I feel like black hair is kind of indestructible and it's very like versatile, and you could do so much with it. And it's strong, but separate it can be weak. So I think that's why I made it with the chains.
Yeah, I think it was so startling to me because when I first saw the chains, I was really, I don't know, I was a little scared in a way.
That's like, good.
Yeah, I think that was productive.
That was my intentions. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Anyways, yeah, I think this piece is a particularly interesting offshoot as we look at like the caw braids and then this
yeah, and I was tired of making caw braids, so this was also a break from that because people kept trying to talk about hair and hair and hair, and I think in a way this was kind of me being a brat and just being like, I'm over it. Yeah. Like, next conversation.
Yeah, I feel like in a way you really put your foot down with this show. And
thank you.
Yeah, I felt that, and I was like, okay, here we go. And I think also what showed up in this show was the let's see if I can get it. Oh, there's one. The phone cord double Dutch rope braids. And those are also particularly striking. And this, I don't know, again, just like I don't know what you're doing to get these amazing materials, but it's like, I know, I'm like, what are you swimming in? But it's really an incredible thing to think about. Connection, the body, the relationship of doing two things at one time. Like, black girls don't just jump one rope, they jump two.
Multitasking. Also, too, the double Dutch ropes is from when I was a kid. If you wanted a good rope, just go to Home Depot or your local hardware store and get a telephone cord. It's gonna last longer than anything you buy at Toys R Us. And I think I just wanted to belong to like a crew. I really wanted a crew or like a little gang as a kid, and I feel like when I went to the playground, because I was so tall, I really couldn't jump in the rope because people had to get so close to make the rope big. So I was really good at turning rope. Like, if you wanted someone to turn rope, you came to me. You got me. So like, it was a way for me to be a part of a group and belong in that group of girls, if only for a few hours, because my mother was also very secretly overprotective. Like, looking back, I'm like, damn, she was really watching me. But I didn't look at it that way as a child. So I feel like in a lot of ways, like the playground for me growing up was very like diplomatic. Like, everyone knew their role and played their part, you know? And I think that's what the ropes represented for me, was just wanting to like have a little clique, like growing up, and I really didn't have that unless I was playing rope. Double Dutch mainly. And everyone could be involved. You could get like 2 people at a time in the rope. Like, Double Dutch was so fun when I was growing up.
Yeah, the lines. Anyways, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about the doors and in particular, the way, I don't have an image of it, but the way that the doors are held up? There's a long pole that sort of holds them against the wall. And for me, that was a really productive space. Like, doors that are leading to another sort of liminality of, I don't know, of a pole, of all things. Like, to open a door towards a pole, it felt really futile, like a futile gesture.
I wanted to give the illusion that the poles were freestanding, but I didn't want to screw anything into the floor. And so that's why, one of the reasons why we used the pole is because I wanted to look like you were opening the door to nothing or something, whatever you wanted it to be. I feel like if I was entering the doors, I'm opening up like another like vortex or something. Just thinking about like where my family comes from and how far my family has come so far. We have made it really far, you know, in survival and adversity that my family has faced. And so sometimes when I look at those doors, I get really proud. Even though, like, it is sad that my grandma feels that she got to keep, or knows, not even feels, but she has to keep a weapon by her door. But at the same time, like, without her toughness, I wouldn't be who I am now. So I think about that a lot.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, my mom is, I guess this is also a Chris Rock joke, but it's also how my mother raised me, which is that the only people that really care about you are the ones that are inside your parents' house, in a way.
True.
And so in that way, there was a lot of like trust no one that was happening in my house as a kid. And
oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember once someone knocked on the door, and the way my grandma picked up the bat, she was ready. And it wasn't like she was ready to like fight for herself. She had her grandkids in the house. Yeah. So I feel like that's what those doors represent to me, is a matriarch. And that's what I come from. I come from a very strong matriarch. So that's how I feel. No, my grandfathers wasn't really involved in neither one of my parents' lives. Let me take that back. Grandfather Jerry, you were around. But but I just mean, like, women really held it down in my family, and I feel like these doors are very, like, for the matriarch of my family.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, speaking of matriarchy, we were looking today at your amazing Instagram story where you fantasized your reality as like a queen.
My Instagram is kind of lit sometimes, just because I'm really bored, and I watch a lot of documentaries. So I made up a documentary about me being a queen, and I have 18 children. All their names start with Diamond. They have different middle names though. And it's a BBC documentary on my Instagram.
I would check it out.
It's called Oral History.
Yeah, and it's definitely a series of articulations on like a very strong and very powerful matriarch.
I was the first queen to have portraits of all of my 18 children, and the first queen to give my kids candy. That's it.
I love that. And then sort of speaking about these fantasy spaces, this kind of slides us right into these Haricot Dolls, which are your play off of Amish culture. And
I'm low-key obsessed with the Amish, because I think about how the Amish came over to America and they were like, you know what, we don't want to do what y'all do. And the government actually recognized it and was like, okay,
cool.
Like, cool, that's fine. And sometimes I think about how after Reconstruction era, if by any chance, like, a black leader was like, you know what, we're gonna be like the Amish and we're gonna do our own thing, and the government was like, cool.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Maybe. Yeah. But I made these, a lot of people think these dolls are voodoo dolls, but they are and they aren't, because they do supposed to like be a body, be a person, but at the same time they're Amish dolls, they're faceless. I just don't have the craftsmanship of an Amish person. I don't have like 2 weeks by candlelight to make a handmade doll. I do make these by hand, but it's just my version of an Amish doll, and they're supposed to look like what you think a doll would look like in the late 1800s. Do it look like that or no?
I feel it does.
Okay, so that's why I made it, because Haricot means God in Amish. Well, in German, Dutch, what the Amish speak, y'all.
Yeah, they have
in German.
They speak German, but it's Dutch German, and there's something, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. It's like, it means God's dolls. That's what it means, Haricot. So, a new word we can all learn.
Write it down. Yeah, I think for me these dolls were, again, this like really productive fantasy space that you like find and then cultivate. That's both like historical and somehow ahistorical in a way. Like, I think about these ideas, like my sister's really into being a black separatist, and we disagree on some things, but I kind of like those ideas in the present form to say, like, what would it look like? How could that function?
It's just a thought.
Yeah, it's a question. And
it's just a thought.
Yeah, why not? Why not ask?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the work that you showed at FIAC in Paris again, with Queer Thoughts this time.
I went to Paris, everyone.
It's 2017. You're in Paris, and I think this was a nice sum up of works that you were working on, and then a new piece which I thought was also quite interesting. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this, The Last Stage of Love.
The Last Stage of Love is actually very personal, and it was from my first relationship.
You don't have to talk about it. It's okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'm good. Do I look like I'm about to cry? I'm good. That's it. It was just based off of, I never had been in a relationship before, and when I was, I want to say 23, I met somebody, and we hung out for a minute, and then we broke up, and they really liked baseball. But also, I was just thinking about how my feelings got hurt for the first time, but it was necessary. And yeah, I felt like I always had dreams when I'm stressed out of my teeth falling out or people forcing strange objects in my mouth, like a baseball, until like my jaw pops. I have like kind of like not a fear, but falling on ice or falling on cement really like makes me feel some type of way. I have really big teeth. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I worry about chipping them a lot. So like that's another reason why I made this piece. It's also like the fear. And I was telling my friends earlier, like when you have a lot of children, you lose your teeth. Not all the time, but I know someone who lost the majority of their teeth from having a lot of children. And so also I was thinking about motherhood in a lot of ways with this. But this was actually based on a past relationship and a fear of me losing my teeth or breaking my jaw, and also someone in my family not having any more teeth. They sacrificed their own body so their children could be healthy. Because I think if you have like more than 3 or 4 children, you may or may not, your teeth may or may not fall out, or you might lose some hair. So FYI, y'all.
Something to think about, yeah. I mean, a lot of what that means is like a giving over of the body.
Yeah, like giving yourself over, yeah. Sacrificing yourself for someone else. And I think in a lot of ways, people don't know that love does have boundaries. I mean, a lot of women don't give themselves boundaries with their partners. And I was also thinking about that, like boundaries, and how like people with women will overstep their boundaries all the time. And then as soon as you speak up about it, it becomes a problem. Yeah. So I was thinking about that a lot too. And I know this looks really painful, but it's supposed to be. And those are my actual teeth.
In marble.
In marble, yes.
And so this is a poem that was installed in the windows of NYU, New York University, and I found it wonderful.
Thank you.
As a piece of writing, and then also as a gesture. And being in the adjunct professor spiral at NYU, I can say that my students also found it really inspirational, mostly in that.
That's cool.
Yeah, they loved it. Yeah, awesome. They thought it was really cool.
That's sick.
Yeah, I mean, they're up on it. But in particular, I think what I liked, what they had to say about it was they were like, it's nice to know that being vulnerable is also a gesture of power. And we talked a lot about vulnerability as a way of actually staking a place for oneself to say, this is how much I will give. And so thinking about boundaries and thinking about how much one can really allow themselves to be digested or looked at or looked upon. I think for my students, they were really excited to know that they could control how much they let out of themselves, and they could be really specific about what they said. And I think this piece does that quite well.
Thank you. I think a lot of times people forget that they're in control, and you set up your own boundaries with people. So that's cool that they like that, yeah. That vulnerability.
Yeah, I think also too, there's like questions about the interior and quiet and.
This was for Paris. This was the memories don't live like people do.
Oh, my bad.
Same thing though. It's kind of the same premise, y'all. It's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I, overzealous with my PowerPoint. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to talk more about it, or should we keep going?
I made this just thinking about memories and how like when someone actually says this is very true. When someone's like, "Oh, I think about you from time to time," that means all the time they think about you. So that was the last thing. And also, I think about the devil a lot, not necessarily like in a bad way. I just think about good and evil. I didn't come from a religious household. My family's more spiritual. So whenever someone did like bring up the devil, it was usually like just to spook me into being good, or their idea of good. So like that's what that really came down to. It's just childhood memories, and even now how thinking about good and evil like affects me as a person.
And Diamond, I was struck that you were talking about nightmares, because Rin, in your essay you wrote about the work of Robert Gober, which I often associate with nightmares. Do you think about this idea of nightmares in other works? Like, for instance, in the difference between dreams versus memories, to what extent have dreams been an inspiration for some works, like, for instance, The Doors, which recur over and over and over again?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have dreams of dead family members. So they sometimes help thinking about things, because like the Forever in Our Hearts, I made that because of my auntie Idella, and like having a dream about her telling me, because she died when she was 105, and women in my family live forever. Like, I might be here for a minute, and I had a dream of her back in Chicago, back in her old apartment. And I'm like walking up to her apartment door, and I open the door, and she just says, "Auntie loves you, it's okay." And I felt like I was like forgiven for not visiting her when I should have visited her, and not calling her when I should have called her, because we were close, but it was just like the last few years of her life, I just wasn't seeing her like I should have been seeing her. And so some people could look at that like, relatives visiting you in your sleep as a nightmare, but I feel like these dreams really influence my work. My family, even though they're not around, they still influence me. So The Doors was actually based off of a journal entry, but also a dream of just like seeing a door and like wanting to open it, but not touch the bat for some strange reason.
Yeah. Because sometimes the scale of your work, even when you're talking about the cause, it's so striking that the first cause that you made was so overly long, in a way that it would have this kind of surreal, dreamlike quality.
Yeah, because also too, I wanted it to look like a snake. I'm scared of snakes in real life. I don't play with snakes. I don't think it's cute if you got a pet snake to bring it out and show me your snake at a party, not the look. But like, that's what that came from. It's like just a dream. And I think a lot of times, even with the swing set, it's just like thinking about, okay, I'm no longer a child, but I want it to feel, I want this swing set to be overwhelming, like I was a little kid still.
Yeah.
So that also is like very like dreamlike and surreal.
Sorry, so this is just a still from the publication that you made to your Auntie Idella.
Yeah, this is my zine, Idella, and it's named after my Auntie Idella, and I want to continue making different zines of just different ideas that I have, but it will be titled like Idella Volume 1, Idella Volume 2. I wouldn't be who I am now if it wasn't for my Auntie Idella, because she was the first woman in my family to be like, get your money, save your money, and be smart with your money. And she was born in like early 1912. I think the Titanic was sinking when she was being born. Like, I'm not even playing. So like, I just find her to be really important. So I want her memory to live on.
Yeah.
And there she goes, right there. So, hey, she's there.
In the spirit of being totally self-serving, because we're going to run out of time, would you mind if we fast forward just to the show at ICA? Because it, one, it's a show that's 2 blocks away, but 2, because as you mentioned, Rin,
I did a lot, huh?
You did a lot of work.
Thanks.
You're going to have to come back for another talk. So, this show, as Rin mentioned, was. Well, we should talk about it. We can go ahead, right? Or you want to talk about it? This is a piece called ELG, which is.
Yeah, really ELG, Evil Little Girl. My grandma Estelle used to call me evil, and I kind of was. Just to my brothers, just kind of mean to like my siblings and stuff like that. But I did do stuff to be spiteful at times, because if you play me, consequences will happen. And like when I was a little kid, it was like this older girl that would come over to my house. I don't know if I liked her or disliked her, but it was kind of based off of the memory. It was me and my brother Cameron. We was in the backyard with her, and I took a brick and I dropped it on her from the swing set. I had to be like 8, maybe, and she had to be like 12. And after I dropped the brick on her, because it bounced off her ear, her shoulder, and hit her hand, and she was bleeding all crazy, I probably got my ass whooped so bad, because I can't remember what happened to me. And I never saw her after I did that. And I remember like someone was like, "Oh, why you do that?" And to this day, I do not know why I dropped a brick on her. So that was based off of that. And sometimes you do bad things, and there are no consequences to your actions. But I think I got my ass whooped, and I just can't remember.
Real. So I don't have images.
Oh, you don't? Well,
No,
that's
I don't.
Well, I guess just to conclude, I mean, I thought that it was so interesting that you spoke about this exhibition as.
Oh, wait. Also, I should note this is based off of just Black childhood and how black children are treated in anywhere in the world, not just America, compared to how other people are treated in this world. Black children are treated like adults at a very early age, and other races aren't. So that's it.
And this notion of a greatest hits, or a dream space again, in the ICA, which permeates a work like this. I was interested, I think Stephanie and I were both interested as we were putting together the show, that you approached it almost as like a mini retrospective in a way, that you were sampling from different works from each of the series that you'd shown previously, while also adding, for instance, your first painting, as you say.
Yeah.
Which is abstract.
Yeah. I was having fun with it, and I wanted, this is my first solo exhibition in a museum, and I wanted people who haven't seen my work to get familiar with past work as well as new work. And I think y'all did a great job of helping me with that.
That's all you done. So with that, I guess last question, just because you started, it's like, what's some sort of an interesting turning point is this moment where you're entering painting, and you're of course doing so by casting found hair in concrete, and there is a level of physicality, materiality, which is very different from historic, quote unquote, historic abstract expressionist painting, but clearly making that illusion. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in that kind of in painting as a medium, and what your response was with this piece?
Oh, with painting, I would see other painters and think I can do it too, and so that's why I did it. And I just wanted to try something new with hair. I work with hair a lot, but I didn't want to make a braid piece, and so I think a lot about. I live in Bed-Stuy. I see a lot of weave blowing in the wind, and I see a lot of weave on sidewalks and things like that. And even living on the west side of Chicago, I saw that all the time. So I just wanted to kind of make a piece for Black women again. I just wanted to do that again, and so I did.
Yeah, I think when I think about painting, I always think about it as a proposition for an alternate plane, and the way that you've placed your painting on the floor in relation to the sidewalk, but then also it's so it feels like it's looking inside of a well or something like this.
Yeah.
And so in that way, it was, you sort of did like these two really awesome moves. It was like on the ground and then also going elsewhere, which speaks, I guess, to other works that you've been working on, but this is like a jump.
I know a lot of my work has undertones of violence in it, but I just wanted people's minds to wonder as to why hair was in cement. Because I used to get my hair braided all the time, and like if I had to go to like the bodega or something, my weave would kind of like fall out my hair. And I know a lot of people would think like, oh, that person got into a fight, like they got their hair ripped out, but it might not necessarily be the case. It might just be someone getting their hair done and it's like blowing in the wind because they gotta go to the bodega and they want a juice. That was what happened with me. So I didn't fight nobody.
So I think we're running out of time. And I do want to give the audience an opportunity to ask at least 2 questions.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself with us. I wanted to ask, since you spoke about this notion of radical vulnerability as resistance and power, what are some boundary-setting rituals that you practice for yourself to protect your mental,
Boundary-setting rituals?
Yeah.
I say no.
Okay.
And I think that's what helps me set boundaries. Sometimes people feel bad for saying no, but then when you say yes all the time, you take on too much, and you're doing too much, and you're wearing yourself thin, and then people looking at you crazy, like why you got an attitude, or why you didn't do it like this, and it's like, well, I had 3 things going on, and I decided to take on 7. So now my whole thing is like, if it is too much, just speak up, just say no. Like, it's not that hard to say no. I think sometimes people want to be like, they want to please people, and you don't want to be looked at like a bad person. It's okay to look bad to some people. Just say no. That's how I set boundaries. I say no to people. Thank you.
And lastly, just I think time for one question.
First, thanks so much for sharing so intimately your connection to your work. I'd appreciate it if you could speak for a moment about the jug of drinks and what may have preceded that in your work and what it represents within the show here.
Oh, the jugs?
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes a lot of people think most work is like about oppression and sadness and violence, and I feel like there's a lot of joy and happiness and beauty in blackness that isn't necessarily discussed. It's not sad and oppressive all the time. And so when you look at those jugs, as a kid, when I saw that juice, I knew it was a party. I knew it was a baby shower. We was about to get lit. Like the adults had like whatever they had, and we had our juice. And so I feel like for me, when I look at those juices, it's very celebratory. As a kid, I didn't drink those juices all the time. I wasn't allowed to in my house. But I know like if I went somewhere, went to a function or a family gathering, and I saw those juices, I could have as many juices as I wanted. It was a party, you know? So I think in a lot of ways, that sculpture piece for me is joy. It's just happiness. Because there's a lot of beauty in black communities that people don't want to discuss or don't want to look at. But I know those who I made it for see that, and they're like, oh, okay, we see what she did here. It's joy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.